The following podcast contains spoilers and adult language, and a fantastic DNA reveal.
This is a message from the Office of Emergency Preparedness. Due to the recent crisis, we ask that you remain in your homes. Do not attempt to communicate or interact with the creatures, even if they are people you know.
Lock your doors. Bar your windows. The dead are coming. It's time for Aim for the Head, an all Walking Dead universe podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Diana and Steve.
Hi, Aim for the Head podcast. I'm Diana.
And I'm Steve.
And this week we're discussing the 5th episode of Season 1 of the series, Dune Prophecy. The title of the episode is In Blood Truth. I love a good title that has a comma that you have to, rest. In Blood Truth.
Well, because otherwise it's just in blood truth, and then you're like, "What's blood truth?" And
what does that mean? I don't even know what that word means.
I know.
So, Steve, you went first last week, so it's my turn to go first to talk about the episode itself. We actually just finished chatting a little bit about how we felt about the episode right before we started recording. This was a great episode, even better than last week. More intrigue, more drama for your mama. And some of the drama was with the mamas.
It was mama-related drama, yes.
A lot of mama-related drama on many levels. A couple of really great action sequences. Some really, really great in-depth scenes. Just fantastic. I'm on the edge of my seat to see how they're going to wrap up this first season next week. I can't wait to see how they do it. How about you? How did you feel about episode 5?
It was okay.
It was fine. It was fine. It wasn't boring, but
I only fell asleep twice, but I loved it. I thought it was great too. I thought this episode, out of all the ones they've shown so far, this is when I watched this one, I felt the most connected to the Dune universe.
Okay.
And I think that's because we see the personal shields a little bit more. I know that in like the first episode when the princess was training with the sword master, they were using them there too. But here with the, like when, in that action sequence when he's running around killing all the guys, right? And they're all glowing and stuff. It just kind of gave off that kind of Dune vibe from the movies. Yeah. And it was like I said, my personal feeling was that I felt, this is definitely in the Dune universe. And again, it was, the intrigue was great. And then, like you said, there's that combat sequence, that action sequence at the bar, that Michaela is, where all the rebels meet and everything. Right. Yep. And it's, it was really great. And I mean, just some incredibly great moments in there where, again, everybody's got their own plans and plans within plans, and schemes, and and it's just so wild to watch as all of these things are in motion, right? And then they're reacting to what everyone else is doing, and then they're adjusting their plan. So I love that kind of stuff, and so this episode was really very, very entertaining, and I agree with you that I'm really excited, and just I don't really have a feeling as to how the season's going to wrap up.
Right?
It could be crazy, lots of change. It could be more of just like your standard kind of cliffhanger. I don't know, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think that says a lot about a series when you really just don't know what direction they're going to go in, especially with all of the like plots within plots within plots that were revealed this week. There's just really so many directions it could go in, and I just think it's fantastic, and we don't know, because of the distance from the Dune storylines that we are more familiar with, we don't know any of these characters, so like their they're all on the chopping block, as it were.
Right.
You know, no one has any plot armor, not really. No. So I'm so excited to see how this all plays out. It's going to be great. Before we get into talking about our top moments from episode 5, let's remind our listeners a little bit of a episode description of what we're expecting in episode 5 in Blood Truth. And Steve, why don't you go ahead and take care of that for us?
All right, I can do that. Again, this is Dune Prophecy, episode 1, season 5, and the title is In Blood. Pause. Truth. And the description that we have, and it's an okay description in parts, and in other parts, not so much. The description we have is, as Carino names a new Bashar, a sister with deep connections to the Emperor arrives on Salusa Secundus after receiving a tip. Ooh, like, did she deliver someone's meal and they gave her a tip? I don't know. Anyway, Desmond goes on a warpath to root out the insurgents, and Tula tries to keep her secret project from being discovered. And that's the part that I don't understand at all, because I don't remember Tula doing that at all. But whatever, it's fine. But that is your episode description.
Well, she tried to keep people from coming into that science lab, but
I suppose.
But she made it difficult by taking a sister in there with her to keep working, and and hiding down there all the time and not being available made it really easy for the other sister to come down and start sniffing around. So, yeah. I mean, she tried, but she failed miserably to keep it.
Well, and it's hard when Lila, who is channeling Raquella, walks up and opens the door behind her and is just like, "Come on, I figured something out." And of course, Avila's like, "What the F is going on?"
Yeah, that was fantastic. So yeah, not a fantastic description, but we live to serve IMDb.
I know. Right.
So let's talk one more thing before we get into our points. Let's rehash our writers for this episode and then the director for this episode, if we could.
Yeah, sure, we can do that.
And
we have different writers, which is great, and this time now we have a different director than the last couple. If you remember. The last 2 episodes were directed by the same guy. Well, now we've moved on to a new director, and we also have a new writing team. And our writers, I want to say, are a husband and wife team.
Okay.
And that it's a gentleman named Carlito Rodriguez, and the other writer is a lady named Leah Benavides Rodriguez. And so I looked online and I did not see anything that said they are, married or anything, but that's just my feeling on it. Carlito Rodriguez, he is a producer, co-executive producer of Dune Prophecy. So very, involved in all aspects of it. He also, obviously, he wrote this episode of Dune Prophecy. He was also a producer and a writer for the Fox show Empire, if you remember that one.
Yes.
From a few years ago. And Leah Benavides Rodriguez, she was a writer on Empire, so I'm guessing that's where they met. She also wrote for a show called Tales. And she also wrote for a show called The Arrangement, if you remember that one. And both of those are in the last 3 or 4 years.
Interesting.
So, and that's our writing team. And then our director is a gal named Anna Forrester. And she has a pretty decent list of credits already as a director. She worked, surprise, surprise, on Westworld. There's another connection. I mean, there's a lot of Westworld people here.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
Yeah, and that's fine. Westworld was a very well written, richly produced show. So
it needed to succeed visually as well as have a stunning story. So it's nice to see lots of the creatives have been connected with that show as well. That gives it some good bona fides for sure.
Absolutely. But then she also directed a whole bunch of shows. She did some episodes of the Marvel series Jessica Jones.
Mm-hmm.
She did several episodes of the television show Outlander, which is hugely popular all
Oh
over
yeah.
the world. She did episodes of just some more regular episodic television like Madam Secretary and Criminal Minds, several of the Criminal Minds shows she directed. And then she directed the feature film Underworld Blood Wars, which is one of those Kate Beckinsale
Oh yeah,
vampire
yeah.
movies. And that
Mm-hmm.
came out like in 2015, 2016 maybe. So,
Okay.
like about 7-8 years ago. So yeah. So again, she's definitely got some experience and has done a lot of different work and I thought that her direction was great in this. I had
Yeah.
there was never
Great.
a moment where I'm like that was weird. So
Yeah, exactly.
so yeah, so that is our writers and our director, and they have not leaked any information yet that I could find about next week, so I don't know if these same folks will be back for next week's episode. They've kind of done that in the 6 episodes, a lot of twofers for people,
Right.
but I do not know what's happening. We'll have to see. So
We will have to see. So for the start of the episode, I thought it was interesting, and I made note of it. This was our first episode where we didn't get any kind of cold open. It just went right into the title sequence, which we haven't really talked about it very much. But I really, just for a brief moment, it's beautiful title sequence, good music, very sort of haunting. Lots of really great visuals, and what's great about it is I'm trying to think of what it reminds me of, but it's also there's another show that I can't think of the title that did something similar where there's a lot of images in that cold open that eventually are going to come true in the episode. There's a lot of stuff with the worm and things like that. There's a lot of stuff that we see in the the visions that Kasha was having, and you get that image of the pomegranate breaking open and all this other stuff. It's really great. There's some really great visuals in there. So yeah, I thought it was really cool because it put that title sequence right there front and center for you. And I thought that was interesting. So yeah, no cold open, right into the credits and right into the show.
It's funny. In the first episode, they didn't have like the title sequence set. That really didn't show up till episode 2. And so I watched it in episode 2, and then ever since then I just skip it.
Right, I usually do too. But when it started playing, I was like, I made a note about how there was no cold open, but I stopped for a second and watched a few of the visuals, and I was like, we hadn't really talked about it before. So
no, but just when you brought it up, I'm like, you know what? I would have to go and rewatch it because I'm not really sure what all it does because I've skipped it for the last month.
I know. It's so easy to do because it tells you. It's like, would you like to skip intro?
Yeah,
You're like, yes, please,
yeah.
I would.
Let's just jump ahead. Yep, yeah. I'm right there with you. Particularly in this show because I'm just like, let's get to it. Come on.
Oh, of course. So our opening scene we get right away is and we don't find out who she is until she's introduced later, but it's the arrival of Francesca on Seleucus of Goodness. So that sounds awful coming out of my mouth while I'm sick. Seleucus Secundus, which is the planet for the emperor.
Yes.
And the imperial planet, as it were. And so basically through a couple of different moments and scenes, we get one of the first of a handful of really great bombshells in this episode. And one is we finally meet Constantine's mother, and she's a sister from the sisterhood. And the way it was announced was fantastic. She's got this really great accent. I feel like someone said, and I don't, correct me if I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, I apologize, but I could have sworn in either the featurette or something they were mentioning the actress who plays Francesca, that she's a really well-known Bollywood actress.
Yes, she is.
Yes, sure. Okay. Her speech is so, like, her accent and her voice is just, it was like honey. It's so beautiful, and so it just like pulls you in. She's really fantastic. And then so she's, there's this tense moment, and she hasn't seen the emperor in years, and he is obviously very happy to see her. He's surprised to see her, happy to see her. And the empress is not happy to see her.
Not too thrilled, no.
Not too thrilled to see her. And she's even kind of rude about it. I don't think you knew, but this is a private event for family. And she's being rude and treating her like, and at first you're like, oh, she's just being that way because she's a sister. And we already know that the empress does not like the sisterhood. She's been very vocal about it. So that feels like that's earned in that moment. But then Francesca goes on and says, I'm not here on sisterhood business. And then she says, I received a message from Constantine. I'd like to see my son. And you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, the actor is a gal. Her name, it's one of those one name people. Her name is Taboo, Tabu. So I don't know how you pronounce it, but yeah, she is primarily an indie. Like her work is almost all exclusively in Hindi films.
Okay. Yeah.
So she's Indian, and I mean, first of all, she is just stunningly gorgeous.
Oh God! And what in the sisterhood outfit, you're only gonna be seeing your face, because they are so, buttoned up, as it were, and her face is gorgeous.
Yeah, she
absolutely
is
gorgeous,
exotic, and she is stunning, and I mean, as soon as she shows up, you can see the emperor, and it's just like, hey, you got a roll of quarters in your pocket or what over there? I mean, he was just like, well, hello. So yeah,
well, and I wasn't expecting that today.
And it was also like the first of several times where a female cast member is like throwing literal daggers at another female cast member, just giving a frowning of a lifetime to her. I mean, just it's so great, yeah. And wow, what an entrance, right? Because she comes in and she's got the veil on and the whole black kind of dress thing, and so you're like, who's this? Because again, all of the sisters have been kicked out of the palace, so why is this person here? Yeah. And then when she like kind of lifts the veil and I'm here to see my son, you're like, uh-oh.
But then it makes sense because here's the Mark Strong he's a good looking guy, but Constantine is a gorgeous guy, a gorgeous young man, and so you see, like, he clearly got his mother's looks. And obviously, if there's unfinished business with Francesca, he treats Constantine pretty poorly. And, the Empress appears to have no time for him, which this all makes sense now. And just, there was this weird feeling all the way up until this episode that the Empress didn't like the sisterhood, and it didn't feel earned yet. You didn't understand where that kind of came from. Oh, it makes sense now. It makes all kinds of sense now.
It do make a lot of sense, yes.
So yeah, she's clearly jealous of their past, and knows that in a lot of ways, and you can see it on Yaviko's face, that she can't compete with Francesca. And the only reason she was able to I'd love to hear the story of why Francesca left and left her son, and why isn't she the Empress? And, was the current Empress, was she in love with Yaviko and sort of positioned and jockeyed her way in there? And I don't know. I'm very curious to see how that all sort of came about. That history would be interesting, and give some more layers there.
I agree. I want to find out too. I mean, I want all the details, but
the dirty details.
but don't you think that Francesca was probably following the instructions of Valia?
Oh yeah.
And the whole, advancing the bloodline, and
Oh
they,
yeah.
they decided they wanted, they like she tells the son at one point, because he asks like, why did you have me, right?
Protect your
When
sister, yeah.
and she basically says, you're there to like protect the empress, because she's
Right.
going to be on the throne someday. And
Right.
and she even adds to that line of like, you have to protect her even from people that claim to love her.
Yes, loved that line.
And
it's great too because it really makes you harken back to when, Jessica did the same thing.
right.
You were told to bear only daughters, but he
mhm.
wanted a son and
I
da da da.
loved him.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's got some Jessica and
Yes.
Leto energy in there. So
Again,
yeah.
like I was saying when we were talking about quick thoughts, there was a lot of stuff here that I really felt, oh yeah, this is the world
Yeah.
of Dune. So
Yeah. So that was all fantastic. And before we get to your first point, which is this great scene, which we both sort of, but we do get we jump over to the sisterhood themselves, and get a couple of scenes there. And it's clear, they made it clear that Jen really hadn't had the dream. We were talking about it last week, that there was a possibility that she had the dream and was just hiding it. We talked at length about it. And it was, I hate when that happens, when you have like sort of a thing that's unanswered or is ambiguous. And we talk for like a good 10-15 minutes about a topic. And then like 10 minutes into the next episode, so you really haven't had the dream yet? Nope. And I'm like, son of a bitch.
Well, that answers that.
That answers that question.
Yeah.
So, don't mind that 10 to 15 minutes we spent in the last episode debating one way or the other. But yeah, so Jen hasn't had the dream, but she does eventually get brought down to sort of assist with Lila. So it makes her, it actually is a really good sort of happy accident that it's happening, or maybe it's somehow on purpose, because she's not being haunted by the dream or getting any other kind of imagery while she's assisting with Lila. So it makes her very, very well positioned to assist Lila as best she can in those moments where Tula has her down there, because she's not being distracted or she's very, very focused on what she's working on. So I think it worked out pretty nicely that Jen's not having that dream. So we get a couple of go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, when that scene opens, I kind of liked it that all of the acolytes are like, they've got like a Bunsen burner, and they're like trying to like do like the Jedi mind trick where like you put your hand over the flame, but and Sister Avila is kind of giving the Yoda, pain don't hurt speech of, use your mind. Use your mind. And, if pain is just energy and you direct it to other parts, or, all this great stuff. And all of them are like, ow, ow, ow. You know what I mean? But it accentuates that like none of them clearly can concentrate on what they're doing, because these dreams are happening every night, and no one is sleeping, and everyone's kind of freaking out. And the fact that Tula is basically vanished, so she's there, so like your leader, first of all, Valia is not even there. She left.
Right.
And the person that's been, put in charge, the second in command, who they all know, she's also just disappeared and is not around. And so there's lots of uncertainty and doubt and all that going on. And it was just neat that they're trying to do this like kind of cool, you can like control pain, and all of them are like, ow, 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 because it's just not working,
Right.
So,
we can't control anything right now. We're scared. We're scared.
We're freaking out here, people. Yeah.
That's a great scene. We got these really, we'll take your points, and I got a point too, where we got these two really impactful scenes with Desmond, not quite back to back, but they were really close together. And your first comment there kind of comments on our the first major scene, which is sort of presenting Desmond as like is that where he names him the new Bashar?
Yeah, he's the Bashar.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously that must, he's the head of the army or the
Well,
this
he has that regiment that is formed. Yeah.
Right.
And I was going to ask you, do you think, like, my first thought was like, ooh, maybe this is sort of the precursor to the Sardaukar.
Possible. I mean, they totally looked like it looked like Assassin's Creed, to be fair.
Oh yeah, they were all ninjas. Choice. Yeah, there's no doubt.
Big time. Yeah. But yeah, I had that thought as well. The perfect soldier, fighting for the Imperium. It's they're solely focused on one goal. Be interesting to see if it sort of splinters off from what they're doing right now and sort of like grows into it. Yeah. Definitely has that possibility for sure.
I mean, it just, I got that vibe just because, I mean, clearly like that regiment that he commands, it's loyal to the Emperor, and everyone else be damned, and that's kind of the Sardaukar's thing, that they are his personal, weapon that is so that it's feared and so on. So but my first point was just that, after 6 weeks of the homeworld, he finally changed outfits.
I know.
So I'm like, yay!
And they did him in such a nice, dramatic way where they don't even show him really getting dressed at first. They just show his jacket, the one he's had on since day one, tossing that down like he's took it off and threw it down. And in your head, you're like, oh, is he putting on new clothes? Because that'd be great.
That'd be so
and
nice.
That was correct.
Yeah. No more desert gear. Now he's all decked out, and all the soldiers too. They're all black. It's all wearing black, and so then they come out and kind of present. They march around, and of course the Emperor and a lot of the Land Rosette are all there, and the Emperor does this great speech about how this could have been a funeral, and we're grateful that we're all still here, and that we what did he say, we were not going to tolerate any of these things, we're going to defend our values with violence. And I mean, he has this kind of interesting speech about how hey, the new sheriff's in town, and then he appoints Desmond as his Bashar and is charging him with stamping out this rebellion throughout the Imperium. And of course, Desmond's like, you got it, buddy. So
right, yeah, that's it. And the whole thing was just presented in such a it's such a visually astounding kind of way, and him changing into the outfit added to it, because he's been Mr. Scruffy, second only to Daryl Dixon for quite a lot of the episodes we've seen, pretty much all of them, and he puts on this sharp ninja style outfit. He hides his blade really nicely. He's all really, it's all really nice, and then he sort of matches all of the other guys. It's just the way all of the soldiers are sort of presenting themselves. It's all very, regimented and visually very impressive to look at. So, really interesting and well done sort of official scene, almost like coronating him as the Bashar. It was really well done.
Well, and just visually too, he always kind of stood out in that kind of brown desert outfit as an outsider. He's not part of the palace. He's not part with the Emperor. He's this guy that came from Arrakis, and now literally he's changing colors, and now now he is fully Team Emperor. Right. He's fully part of the House Carino and is one of them, and so that was just an interesting visual cue for us to pick up on that. Okay, you know what, he used to be kind of this guy we weren't sure about, kind of what's he all about, we don't know. No, now he is definitely the star quarterback for our team. So
yeah, exactly. So you get this great scene with him, and then the next great scene with Desmond. Oh my god, the scene with Harrow, just unbelievable. It's so funny because you kept it right to the point.
Yeah.
And mine, in my point, I put Harrow meeting with Desmond. Great scene. You feel like you have a grasp of what lengths Desmond will go to, and he's going to take advantage of the lengths, and Harrow will go through. But then you find out Lila's behind it all. I mean, sorry, but there was a lot going on there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it's great because I didn't even think of I put Lila, but really it's Valia. I knew that I made a mistake somewhere in my
I was
notes.
wondering if you were going to catch that, because
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
I
I
don't think Lila put him up to it, but okay.
Yeah, exactly. So I really wasn't expecting the plot within the plot kind of thing, the way they presented it. I took it on face value when Harrow went to meet with Desmond, mostly because of how he was reacting back at his house and stuff like that. He seemed very embarrassed by everything that happened. And, when he was getting, teased by his uncle, oh, she left you high and dry and da 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 da. So they sort of led you down that path. So I was buying it. I'm like, okay, that makes sense that he would come and try to curry favor, apologize for what happened, curry favor, and try and continue to get ahead.
Right.
Just a great scene all around. And I love seeing the casual sort of use of spice in a lot of these scenes where it's like it's treated as like the drug that it is.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It really is just like sort of visually amazing to watch.
It reminded me of like the clubhouse for the 1986 New York Mets, because I mean they're like passing spice around like it's cocaine, and just everyone's taking a snort and a hit, and and just the fact that it's just so accepted.
Yes.
It's sort of like, oh, you got some? Yeah, I'll take a hit, sure.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to ask you about this scene is, we find out, of course, later on that not Lila but Valia actually kind of encouraged this sequence that she clearly told Harrow, look, you got to go and try and patch it up with Desmond because of the whole accusing the Emperor of treason thing, and you can give him this lead on the insurgents with the contraband and go after the smugglers and all the stuff that he tells him, right? My question is, do you think that some of what Harrow was saying to Desmond was real, in that, if he finds something out about his aunt, will he turn her in? Will he rat her out?
I think it's totally possible that Harrow is playing both sides. That Harrow would be willing to play both sides. I'm sorry. I think he's cautiously, like right now, he's working for Valia, because he fed, the stuff that he fed to Desmond was essentially. It's a lead, but it's like a fake lead, because Michaela knew, she was able to clear everything out. It's not like, it was like a planted lead. So, so he's on Valia's side, it appears, but he also knows enough about the situation that it would only take just a quick turn for everything to fall apart for Valia, and for him to be the reason why. and I which would be delicious if that's the way it would happen. But so I think he has it in him to do it, especially when Desmond gives him, like, I'm not even certain what it was just like a jewel.
It kind of lit up almost like
I
didn't know what it was either. I'm like, huh? It means something, because he was like, woo.
Yeah, I'm dying to know the significance. And clearly, the first time I saw it, I honestly thought that it was something to do with the spice. And then when I watched it again, I was like, it's got like flecks in it, but that could be gold. But I don't think that they mine like precious metals. But it was glowing, and it was kind of mesmerizing.
Yeah.
So could he's on Valia's side currently, but if someone were to give him like a whole bag full of those little, shiny orbs, would he change his mind? I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think, because my thought when I watched that was, that, okay, yeah, he went there because she told him to, and it was all the plot to kill Desmond. I mean, it was,
Right.
that was the bar was a trap.
Right. It was all
Right,
about him blowing up in the bar.
Yeah. And so he was part of that. And he kind of, whether he knew that was the end game, he was told, look, you go and give this lead. And I'm sure she told him, look, if you give this lead to Desmond, that will help get you back in the good graces of the Emperor. I mean, it'll, you're helping, right? And so he did, but I agree. I think he, like Harrow, like he's not a master at the whole politic thing yet, but he's like watching and learning and seeing what everyone else is doing around him and kind of figuring out, oh, okay, that worked. Oh, that was not a good thing to do. And you're right. I think if the opportunity came up where he could, be forgiven by the Emperor for like the family shame, the Harkonnens ran away during the Machine Wars and stuff. And if the price of that is getting rid of his aunt, I don't think he would have a problem with that.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And I think that the most interesting part about that is that I think Valia will underestimate him.
Mm-hmm.
He may turn on her, but ultimately be unsuccessful. Like he may end up like dying or being killed by Valia. But I think he has the possibility of turning. And when he does, I think it's going to surprise the shit out of her. I think she has very low expectations out of him other than doing what he's told.
Yes.
And he's been doing that so far. So I think that the biggest thing that would come out of that is the element of surprise for her. I think she would totally not see it coming if he flips. And it's interesting to know, like, he could still remain loyal. Like, we could see him still remain loyal all through the next episode and into whatever the next season will be, and if there will be one. It could not happen at all. But knowing that it's a possibility and that it just makes it that much more tense and interesting as we roll forward. And like I was saying in the beginning, like none of these characters having any kind of plot armor, us not knowing anything about what these people's histories are.
Yeah, right.
As they grow older or don't grow older, means that, I don't know what he's going to do. And the fact that he could flip, it still makes that so much more intriguing. It's super cool. I love it.
Yeah. Well, there's that scene when he comes back to his house and she's there. It's like one of the few times she was on the set this week, right?
Yeah.
And he, he talks about, she's like, how did it go? And he's kind of saying stuff, and he, how you're kind of relaying events, and he says something like, Desmond Hart, he wants to know all about what you're up to, and then he kind of pauses, and then he goes, what are you up to?
Yeah.
But the way he kind of said that, it's I'm right there with you in that. It's like he's sort of like, he's not going to do anything now, but you can tell he's like clearly like taking notes.
Yeah.
And just like, I'm just going to store this information away. And I think one thing I think he's definitely learning is that information is definitely a commodity in the palace that is, worth stuff. It's valuable.
Yeah. Yes. And this is, I don't, as much as he's got ambition, I think there's some, his fraidy catness might actually help him, because I think when something is presented to him, I think he's going to be scared to accept something right off the bat. He just, because he doesn't have the instinct. So I don't know if that will work against him or in his favor, but we'll have to sort of wait and see how that rolls. Ugh.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah. So let's see. Let's move on to. I mean, you can jump sort of like right into Desmond sort of running away to do the I guess not the bidding, but he sort of takes Lila's bait. I'm not Lila, Valya's bait.
You really want it to be Lila, don't you?
You know what? It's because the way their the names are. It just keeps
Valya, Lila. I know.
Yeah,
I hear you. Tula. Yeah.
It's too many L names.
Avila. I mean, they're all.
Oh,
in there,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then you have Jen.
Yeah, Jen. But Desmond has this. He takes Valya's bait and wants to go look up all these insurgents, and we get this great tense scene with Desmond and Kieran, and you got the best line out of the whole thing.
Yeah, that was it. There were a couple of lines that I was like, oh my god, that was the best line in the episode, and then like a few other, that was the best line of the episode. No, that's the best line. There were a couple of great ones, but we see Kieran, and he's like in his dojo, and he's opening up the racks with the swords, and he's clearly like getting ready for a session or something. And he doesn't lock his little foot locker or whatever, which ends up screwing him in the end. But he gets interrupted because he hears the sound of soldiers marching, and a whole, like maybe all of the regiment that Desmond's in control of comes marching up and stops, and Desmond is right there with them, and he comes in, and it's so great because he's like, oh, sword master, and Kieran is just like, you know what I mean? He technically he could still get ratted out, although most of the insurgents have been already killed, so you know what I mean. But he's he it's not like he's firm, and so Desmond has that look on his face, and he's like, we're looking for insurgents. And then there's this pause, and Desmond or Kieran is like, crap. And again, all of the soldiers are there, and you really get the sense that it's like, yep, your time is up, and like Desmond's going to be like, we're looking for insurgents, and we're going to start with you, or whatever.
Right.
But then he goes, you want to come? and immediately Kieran's like, oh, thank God, and then
they don't suspect a thing.
No, I'm safe, right? And then I think like Constantine shows up for a session, and Desmond goes, oh, I see you're giving a dancing lesson, I'll leave you to it, and then they leave. But yeah, I love that, the way that Desmond said that line. I mean, because I got all of the sense of, oh, Kieran, your time is up. Yeah. That this is it for you. And then, nope, it's not. He just wanted to see if you wanted to come and have some fun with him. And yeah.
What's interesting is you can't read Desmond. So in that moment, what makes that scene so great and so tense is, I don't know, like, does Desmond suspect him?
Yeah.
Does Desmond suspect everybody? It's hard to say,
Mm-hmm.
They know that the insurgents had to have had help on the inside to be able to place the machine and all that other stuff. So it's like, I'm that moment, like, is he being friendly? Is he being like on purpose? He's being vague, like, do I know? Do I know something? Am I going to pretend that I think I know something just to like lead you out,
Get you to reveal something by me looking like I know something. Yeah.
So like on the edge of a knife, that scene.
Yeah.
And it could have gone anyway, and it was like, okay, bye. And then when he leaves, you're like, and you almost have to thank like Constantine, because I wonder if that could have like continued to be as tense as it was, if like in the prince, like he's not about to like cause a scene in front of the prince without evidence, but so as soon as Constantine comes in, it's like, okay, it's time for me to go, but I think I've done my work here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And what was I mean, you have to think that Kieran knows that, like the main guy in the insurgency, the guy that was going to like release the little drone, who was like, he was always at the bar with him, right? They had captured that guy, and clearly when they bring him into the chamber there where all the Lanrazad are, he's been beaten. They've clearly, I'm sure, been torturing him, trying to get him to talk.
Right.
Right. Leading up to that. And so Kyrian has to have a little doubt, right? Of like, could he have ratted me out? Am I safe? Should I leave? What do I do?
Right.
You know what I mean? So, and then you're right. And then when Desmond comes in and the way he says that line of, we're looking for insurgents, and all of those soldiers are there staring at him. I mean, it was great. It was so great because I really thought, yeah, okay, this is it for him.
Yeah, the walls are closing in, really. Yeah.
Yeah.
Such a great scene.
And so once he leaves, right, he the prince is ready for his session, and he kind of blows up at him because he's like 5 minutes late, and tells him, if you ever want to win your dad's respect, you got to like start taking things seriously. Oh, that's it. That's the only lesson. And he leaves. But I mean, I think that was more of a convenience thing because he immediately goes to the bar to warn Sister Michaela. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like, he's like, you got to fly, kid, because it's only a matter of time until Desmond gets here, because he's cracking down on all the smugglers, and somebody eventually is going to say, oh, yeah, the bar. That's where everything happens. So.
Yeah. And what's funny is he, at the end of the scene, like, she's got the moment with the knife and he figures things out.
Mm-hmm.
But prior to that, like, it just dawned on me, he never questioned the fact that she was already setting those charges before he showed up.
Mm-hmm.
She knows that Desmond's coming to her. She knows it's happening. She's preparing for that. And I think she like sloughs it off as like, I don't remember what her lines were, but I'm pretty sure she says something like, I figured he's going to come here and, try all of these places, her place falls under a category that would make sense for them to be sort of, inspected, as it were. So I feels like she kind of like sloughs it off, but she's pretty far into she's got these charges and she got them in advance. Like she knew what she was doing, and he just didn't see it in that scene. Like, he's clued into the sisterhood connection with the knife.
Right.
But what he should have been,
but
he should have figured something out when it was like, I'm really ready for this whole place to go up in like.
Well, he asked her because she's placing the charges, and she like unzips her like bag, and there's like 30 grenade things in there, right? And she's like clearly demoing the whole place, right? She's getting it ready to blow it all up, and he's like, where did you get those? And she's like, I have my own sources, and it's kind of letting him know, look, you know what, I'm I have stuff going on that you don't know about, right? But he doesn't pick up on it at all. And I wrote down this line that they exchanged there right before Desmond shows up, where she's like, you gotta, he goes there and basically says, you gotta leave. And she's like, no, I'm not, let Desmond Hart come. I'm ready for him. And she shows him the detonators. And she's like, you should leave too, because, you're just as much in jeopardy. And he's like, no, I'm safe. My cover's okay. I've spent years building it, and I'm good. And she like kind of gives him this look and goes, I've been doing this a lot longer than you have, and I'll give you some advice. Do not ever make the mistake of thinking you can become the man you are pretending to be. And he responds, even if that man is better than me. And she goes, especially then. And, it's sort of like, don't like confuse the character you're playing with who you really are. Yeah. And I thought that was just a really cool line. And then literally as soon as that, she says that, that's when Desmond and the troopers show up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And he helps. He sets all of those, helps set all the charges.
Mm-hmm. And she goes upstairs. She doesn't hide.
Yeah, she's right there. She's talking with Desmond. But it's great because, he's asking questions and whatever. And every now and then you see her, she's looking up at the charges because she knows. Mm-hmm. And we find out at the end of the scene that they'll start to blink red when they've all been set and they're engaged and getting ready to go. So she knows she's on like a time limit.
Yes.
So yeah, there's this you get the whole scene. He's asking lots of questions, and she's doing such a great job of deflecting them all, but in a really smart way where she's not I don't want to say overacting, but like she's as cash as you can be. She's trying her best, and she's doing a really good job. And then they start to like fan out, and they're looking at everything, and they're trying to find whatever they can. They do eventually find, which she must have left there for a reason. There's this one room he finds, and it's just filled with, there's like canisters of spice.
Yeah.
That's just all it is. And while he's sort of distracted by that, she and Kieran are like making this mad dash for, okay, everything's everything's all set and ready to go, so we gotta go. And they fight their way through a couple and it was funny because he has this moment where it's like, stay behind me. And at first you think like, oh god, misogyny, but he has the shield, so he's safe, so she doesn't have one of those shields like he does, and so he's able to take like little blows here and there and be fine, so that he basically stand behind the shield. So they're making their way down this corridor to try and get out of there before the charges go, and stabbing here and fighting there and stabbing here and fighting there, and she sees an opening and she goes, because she's like, I don't want to get stuck here, and so she runs to get to the end of the room, and someone like reaches out to grab and gets her, and she's forced to fight them, and she pulls out her Bene Gesserit knife and quickly takes care of business. Like very quickly takes care of business.
Oh yeah, she slices and dices. Yeah.
And then they have that great scene outside where he says, I've seen one of those knives before, and I know what it is, sister. And it's just great because he's so close to killing her, because he realizes she's a sister. She knows everything, which means now Valia probably knows everything. He understands that she's probably been reporting everything to the sisterhood this whole time. And it all becomes clear in that moment, and he almost kills her, but he says that he won't, and sort of leaves her there, but he's like, I better never see you again, which of course is that like Chekhov's gun. Will they have a moment together at some point, I wonder?
Could be. Could be, yes. Yeah. Well, so, I mean, he just once he puts that together that she's with the sisterhood, then he's like, well, was your support of the insurgency at all? Were you ever a believer, or were you just doing this as like you were undercover? That you were a spy in our group, just as I'm a spy in the palace. And what did she say? Like the sisterhood, has the best interests of the Imperium in mind always, just like you guys do. But the other thing, you've mentioned Bene Gesserit a couple times. Do you think that they're called that? I don't. I think there's just the sisterhood at this point.
No, they're called the sisterhood. They haven't mentioned that name at all. I just say that because that's what I'm used to calling them. I'm not used to the sisterhood yet, because this is sort of the growth of them. But I mean, technically, that's what they are. That's what they're going to become, right. In title. But no, they haven't called them that yet.
Look, they're 10,000 years before the movie, so it might not happen immediately. Maybe it'll be like 1,000 years.
Maybe it will.
Yeah, right. Again, we don't really know. But the other thing I thought was interesting in this scene is when she's talking to Desmond Hart, he brings up the fact that she's a Fremen.
Yep.
And he's like, how do you live with yourself, like, selling, and smuggling and being involved in the spice trade, which is, clearly involving like the raping of your planet and the killing of your people and, all that stuff. Right. And basically, how can you profit and be involved in this, what's going on? And again, you can tell he doesn't understand her. Where it's like and something is off with her because of that. It's like she's Fremen, yet she's embedded here on the Imperial homeworld, and she's involved in the illegal spice trade, and it clearly has some connection with the insurrection that's going on, and it just doesn't add up, and he's not sure why. And then once they go and start searching, and they're going through the canisters of spice, in one of them he finds her sister black dress.
Yes. Yeah.
And the veil, and he pulls that out, and then it's like, now I get it. Now I understand why this particular person with her background, why she's here. It's because she's, an agent of the Sisterhood, and is doing what the Sisterhood have told her to do, that kind of thing. And I thought that was a really great moment. And it almost makes me wonder if the piece of black material that he's always holding on to, if that's Tula's, from his mother.
Yeah, I put that in my notes when we find out the Tula stuff, that I'm dying. God, we got to know what that black scrap of fabric is. I mean, it probably is like a piece of like her sisterhood dress, or when he was left where he was left with, maybe they gave him a piece of fabric.
They wrapped him in it or something.
Yeah, something like that, and it's like the only thing he has left from being a child or whatever. So it's got to have some kind of connection to Tula. I'm dying to know like the genesis of it, like how what was it before, what is it now, is it and the significance of it. It's killing me. It's killing me.
It's killing me here. Yeah. So, but that whole sequence, and it's really kind of split, because we get they start like the search, and then it cuts back to Wallach 9, and Tula has, like you said, has appropriated Jen to kind of watch over Lila, and make sure she stays tied up to the bed, because if one of like the ancestors who's really angry gets in control of her, it could be bad, right? And of course, I love the scene where she's talking to her, and she's Lila. And Jen is telling her, you're the bravest of us all, and you didn't let us down, and blah, blah, blah. And she like isn't really looking at Lila. She's sort of looking off while she's talking. And Lila kind of leans back and closes her eyes for a second, and then her eyes pop open, and it's like, Lila is gone. and now it's Mother Raquela has now entered the building.
Yeah, she's entered the chat.
and oh my God, and we both wrote this down. I mean, that actor at play, I mean, it was just amazing, because it's like clearly not the same character. It was lovely. It was lovely to watch.
And what's great is we've got that base knowledge of those scenes with Raquela from the first episode, the second episode, whatever.
First and second, maybe. Yeah.
So we get these great scenes with her, and she, we've seen her a couple times. So, they give you like a tiny sort of visual cue, like there's a thing that happens with her eyes, so that like something happened, something changed. But then as soon as she starts speaking as Raquela, it's so obvious. Like the actress who plays Lila, this is a masterclass in just, there's so much. And this girl does not have the same voice as that actor. There's no way, you can't do that. But she has the same timing and timbre and tone, and just the way she, her facial expressions, the way she holds her head and holds her body, like everything about her was Mother Raquela. And it was insane to watch. I mean, that is a masterclass right there on, because you got to think like, listeners, think about this. It's a person who is acting and pretending to be another person, Lila, and then while she's pretending to be Lila, she has to also be someone else who is speaking through the person that she is supposed to be playing, like the levels that she has to go through, and it is pristine. Those scenes are pristine, and what's great is there's so much great information.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you're on the edge of your seat. That whole scene when she's, slicing up the piece of the brain, and they're looking at it, and you're learning new information, and it's fascinating. And on top of it, you're like, this actress is killing it.
She's killing it. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. And she's talking about like, during the machine war, the machines came up with a similar kind of a virus that created an enzyme that's similar. I mean, and you're just like, wow, it was great. It was really cool.
Yeah. It's I can't say enough. I mean, from beginning to end, from the moment that the actress transitions from Lila into Raquella to the very last moment where she's Raquella, it's incredible. It's so incredible. I think the interesting thing too that we found out was, and it wasn't in that exact scene, but there's some more information later when Sister Avila, knocks on the door, but she makes this comment about it being a virus, that these, they're trying to figure out the nightmares, like what killed Kasha, what did she see, and what is contributing to the collective nightmare that the girls are having, and is it this vision that Raquella had? Is it connected to that? And she, in inspecting the brain of Kasha, she sees some markers in there that remind her of a virus that was around before, and it's just so interesting to think about, like, in a show where in this world they are, because of the spice, they are encouraged to sort of, do a lot of sniffing and inhaling and whatever. And, Raquella says that it's an airborne, like, sort of, respiratory virus.
Right.
So it's, it's communicable through the air. Yeah. And it just is so, like, what do you do to combat the air? How do you do that? So it was an interesting reveal, and also it makes it kind of scary leading into the next episode. Like, everyone's at risk if it's airborne, for sure.
Well, and then she also says that it seems to concentrate on the part of the brain that is like the fear center.
Right.
Too. She said that too. So that is also why everybody's having these nightmares, because they're all like affected by it. So my question is, if it's a virus, how is Desmond able to like turn it on and turn it off? Like he does.
What's the trigger?
Yeah, that is, to the point where these people are literally burning from the inside out. That's the thing, where you're like, okay, it's a virus, but how does he make it work? So
yeah.
But there's also a little moment in there that you see a ship land, and like this courier comes out, and she has like the blood sample of Desmond, and she hands it to Sister Avila, and what I thought was really interesting is that as she is coming off the ship, there's like 20 students that are all getting on the ship. Yes. And then Avila then goes and this is where she's like outside the lab, and she knocks on the door, and Tula comes out, and it's like Tula like comes out of the door like we see a million times, where like she doesn't want anyone to see what's in the room, and so she like opens it just enough so she can kind of squeeze out, and Avila's like, what's going on in there? And she's like, nothing's going on in there, don't worry about it.
Nothing to see here.
Right. And then of course Avila like chastises her big time again. Yeah, like this is the second or third time where she's like, you are like whatever, you're like on some weird science project, and you're totally blowing off all your responsibilities, and like the girls are all leaving the school. They're freaked out. There's no answers. There's nowhere. You're not around at all to give any kind of support or encouragement. And, this is, it's falling down around you. And literally she's like, what would Valia think?
Right.
If she's, and it's right at that moment that Lila comes up and opens the door and is like Sister Tula, I figured something out. And I wrote this down. The look on Avila's face is priceless. Where it's like, oh, it's the dead girl. What?
Yeah.
And so Lila says that she's found some great discovery. Come on in and take a look. And then she looks over at Avila for the first time, and she's like, Sister Avila. And then she leaves. and Avila's like, what the hell is going on? And Tula's like, don't tell anyone you saw this. Leave us alone. And closes the door. And it was a lovely little moment there. I great just to kind of see, because for me, Sister Avila clearly has a lot of spite, I think, for the two sisters. Right. She was Dorothea's kind of like right-hand woman back in the day. Yep. And I think she will obviously follow the sisters' orders because they're the Reverend Mothers. But in her heart of hearts, if they were to, leave, she would be okay with it. Don't you get that sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Why? What do you think?
I get that sense. Just the way she's all, any chance to knock Tula down at the job she's doing running the school, she's taken. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of think that, she's going to be a good soldier, but at the same time, if everything blows up in Valia and Tula's face and they leave the sisterhood, they're discredited or whatever, she would be like, yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and she'd probably step in to be like, I'll take over,
for
the sisterhood.
Right, for the good of everything, And
it's interesting because just in the last episode, before it was revealed that, she had kind of saved Lila and should not have, Avila had that moment in the little lab room with Tula where she's like, I'm proud of you. You've done well and whatever. And she went from that into like this week, which is just like, oh my God, what are you doing? The sisterhood is on the edge and blah, blah, blah. It's just, it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. It was super fun. Super fun.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
What were you saying? That was just to say.
Oh, okay. I think we covered that. Both of us made some comments about, after her moment where the bar explodes and Michaela has her moment with Kieran and he's like, I better not see your face again. We go to a couple other scenes, but it wraps up with Michaela coming to visit Valia at the Harkonnen house. And she has this really great scene with her and Theodosia's there. And it's great because you really get a sense of, in this episode, like people starting to kind of peel away from Valia a little bit. And Michaela, it feels like she has, because, she's like, because Valia doesn't understand why Desmond is still alive. He put that little, the personal shield on just before the explosion. So he survived. And so Valia doesn't understand, how did that happen, yada, yada. She's so upset. And, Michaela, was talking her through it and whatever. And she's like, well, it's no big deal. We've got other plans in place. And just sort of takes what happened to Michaela and brushes it aside. And Michaela is like, hell no. She spent years building up like that place and her reputation and her clientele and da-da-da. And that was everything she had in the world. And she chose to blow it up for the sisterhood, for the bettering of the Imperium. And Valia, in talking about it, treated it so secondhandly that it really, really pissed Michaela off. And she just was immediately, she turns right on Valia. She's got that great, you've got a great line where they were tussling back and forth, and then I put down a great line later when she sort of throws it into what Theodosia said. But let's chat a little bit about your quote you put there. What'd you say?
Yeah, she's like you said, she doesn't, she's like, everything I built up has been destroyed, basically. Yeah. And and Valia is kind of giving that sort of like, no, it was part of the plan. See, we had to blow all of your stuff up so Francesca could maneuver, because that got Desmond out of the palace, right? And he's not talking to the Emperor and not hovering around him, which allowed Francesca to do what she's doing, right? And we haven't even touched on that storyline.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like saying like, no, it's good. It's all part of the plan. And Michaela, like you said, she's like, nah, I think like my thing was worth more than just being like a diversion, for your thing. And she says something. Valia says something to her, like, are you doubting, that you didn't do everything you could do or something? And Michaela's like, it's not my performance that I'm doubting, Mother Superior. And Valia cuts her off and goes, careful how you finish that sentence.
Yeah. Because she's upset about everything, but in that moment you realize the hierarchy. It shows up really quickly.
Yeah, and Valia's like, I understand that you are upset and you've sacrificed everything that you've worked for in the last couple of years, but remember who you are talking to.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and then she's they're talking through the logistics of what happened. And there's a moment where Theodosia sort of like is like, sometimes, she says something sort of like almost glass half fully, like things aren't as they seem and nothing's personal and it's all for the sisterhood kind of thing, basically backing up Valia's play. And Michaela, nods in her direction and says to Valia, I see you're molding this one in your image. And I thought it was a really, really great line, because it's not a compliment when she's saying it. So it's really interesting. And Theodosia, obviously, she's still got to be hurting over, Valia used her to have that moment with Griffin in the last episode, even though she said, doing the shapeshifting hurts me. So she understands in that moment the sacrifice that's for the greater good that she was willing to do, even though it hurts her. And Valia didn't really seem as thankful as she probably should have been. And so in that moment, it's interesting that she was like backing up Valia's play, considering she was on the receiving end of that same bullshit like last week. So
right, yeah. I what I just thought was interesting about that line is, she says, you're molding this one in your image, and literally that person is a shapeshifter.
Yeah. I didn't think about that way. It's very true. It's very true.
Yeah. And I believe the reason why Theodosia says that is Valia like gives Michaela like a little data card or something and says this will get you to like the safe house on Arrakis, and Michaela's response is, I'm not gonna like rat out my people. And then Theodosia goes, I thought the sisterhood were your people.
Sisterhoods are your people.
That's what triggers that line where she's like, oh, I see you're, shaping her mind into thinking like you think. And it just lets everyone know, if we didn't pick up on it, that Michaela is definitely a very free thinking sister.
Yes.
In that
very Fremen.
Yeah, and just may not be 100% team sisterhood. Like maybe like 90% team sisterhood, 10% team Fremen, something.
Yeah, she's not a party line kind of gal.
Yeah, not 100%er, no. And again, is that going to come back this season, next season? We don't really know. Because you get the sense that she's gone, that she leaves, right? She has to get off planet now because clearly Desmond's going to be looking for her. So.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
We get two really great scenes sort of rounds out the rest of the episode. One is, Constantine shoots his shot, and man, does he shoot his shot. So basically, he goes to go to his lesson. He's on time, and Kieran isn't there. He's early or whatever, and he happens upon Kieran's little lockbox that he's got and he finds the little model that shows the layout of the palace and the blinking little spot where they were supposed to place the bomb. And as soon as he sees it, he knows what it is.
Yeah.
And so, we cut away and you come back and you've got this great scene where he and Kieran are together and he's, thanking Kieran for everything he's given him and whatever. And right in that moment where I think Kieran just is about to get it, like, I'm in trouble, something's wrong here, Desmond shows up.
No, Desmond doesn't show up. He just calls like the house guards to come arrest him.
Okay.
Yeah, Desmond's not there at all at that point.
Just the guards do it. I couldn't remember.
And it's just Constantine that does it, and that's kind of what the Emperor is so impressed with, that he did it all himself, and like the scene like right before that too is between Constantine and his mom Francesca, and she keeps telling him, because he's kind of lamenting that the Emperor, his dad, doesn't take him seriously and thinks he's kind of a screw up, and again he kind of is, right? He's right. What does the Emperor say? He's much more interested in just like getting into the bedchamber of every house,
absolutely.
And he's just like a party. Again, like we talked about,
he's young.
Well, we said that at the beginning, since he has no chance to like become the Emperor. I mean, like 100 people would have to die before he would get a shot at it, right? With the succession, that he's like, screw it, I'm just gonna have a good time because I have no responsibility here. No one's expecting me to do anything, so I'm just gonna go out and party, sleep around, have a great time of it while I'm young and so on. And now he's sort of lamenting those choices, and the mom is like, the whole plan that Valia has is to get him appointed to be the commander of the fleet of the Emperor. Right. And so she tells Francesca, you got to get your son to want to do this and prove to his dad that he can hack it, and give me the fleet, Dad. I can do it, that kind of thing. And so she can't tell him that directly. So she tells him, look, you will get your opportunities, and when they come up, you got to grab them and you got to take them seriously. And literally the very next thing that happens is he discovers Kieran is the traitor, and he, takes what his mom said, right? And he grabs it and he arrests him and gets him locked up. And so then that leads to, and also, Francesca has a moment with the Emperor where she tells him, give him a chance, give your son a chance, and he will prove that he is a strong leader and is worthy of being your son and all that. And so those two things kind of come together. And of course, then the Emperor does appoint him as the commander of the fleet. And that's like the second scene there that I think you're talking about, which is like the dinner scene or whatever. So
yes. Yeah. There's the Constantine thing was sort of like one big long moment where he turns him in, but then the payoff is he's got this great scene, which is fantastic. This you made a great note about it too, this great dining room scene. He makes the announcement about him getting the fleet, and you can see, like, Yaviko is the only one speaking. The Emperor's the only one really speaking. But what's going on in the eyes between Francesca and the Empress,
and Inez.
The Empress and Inez, and then Inez and Constantine, she keeps trying to get his, because there's this great scene, which we didn't really talk about, where, Inez was pissed off with Constantine because he didn't back her play in the High Council room. He wasn't there, and she's really ticked off with him. And he's like, I've got your back for whatever. And he does this, which puts him out in front and it basically puts him in favor with his father. And, if you look at the path of how things are moving, you've got, he clearly has this love for Francesca that he's never been able to get rid of. And he's got his son who he can sort of elevate and put in charge of this, he in the middle of all this intrigue going on, his son did the right thing and came through in a way he wasn't expecting and whatever. And the only thing that Inez had going for her was she was going to get married. That kid's dead now. Mm-hmm. She was going to join the sisterhood. Well, we don't want the sisters there anymore. She's not going anywhere. So like her stature is really lowered, and you can tell like the Empress is totally reacting to all of that. Mm-hmm. She knows that there's a big power shift that happened at that dining room table. Is amazing.
Oh yeah. As soon as the Emperor announces that the Swordmaster has been arrested, the look that Inez gives Constantine is, I mean, it's just like, you prick, right?
Yeah.
And then after that, then the Emperor goes, and to show my to reward my son for this amazing act, I'm appointing him the commander of my fleet to go to Arrakis and, solve all of our problems and get the spice flowing, right? And as soon as he says that, then the Empress is staring daggers at Francesca and like, you biatch, and I mean, it's so great. That whole scene. And then Francesca is kind of, she's looking at Desmond and giving, I mean, it's just, it's so great. I love that scene.
There's so much going on in that scene that is not said.
Yeah, it's all nonverbal.
Yeah, it's all this, like, it's all, staring and acting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. It's so, it is that I thought that scene was just fantastic to watch. And of course, the great part is that the Emperor completely clueless.
Oh yeah, he has no clue what's going on here at all. He's been played, actually, because there's this great moment where they talk about there's this sisterhood thing that they can do. It's called imprinting.
Yes.
And so there's this great scene where Francesca's trying to get the Emperor to see his son in a different way, and she's imploring him, give him something to do. And that's when he said the thing about he'd much rather fall into other people's beds. Mm-hmm. She has this moment where she puts her hand on his chest, his bare chest, just for a second. And when she speaks, and they said after, and I think it was in the after scene that they showed, like the behind the scenes thing, where they were saying that that's a really important, sisterhood thing, because it's about being able to coax someone, but it has to be someone that you have a connection with, and she definitely has a connection with the Emperor. So is this just the great, he's been manipulated in a way that he just doesn't even have any idea what happened,
Yeah. Although I
clueless.
see my thought though was that Francesca imprinted him a long time ago.
Oh God, yeah.
And so that, because I didn't put it on my notes, but I did write down the line that it's Valia talking to Theodosia, and she says, "One day you and the others will learn the art of imprinting, making an impression so strong it alters the course of someone's life. It is an emotional and physical bond that never breaks." And and the whole, and once you hear that line, the Emperor's behavior makes 100% sense. Clearly.
God, yeah.
Because as soon as Francesca shows up, he's like, "Hey, baby, let's get busy." Yeah.
He's like a totally different person.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And there's that little moment where he pulls her aside and like starts making out with her. And she's like, whoa. I don't want to get between you and your wife here. I just came to see my son. But I mean, that, and then that moment where she kind of like opens up his shirt and she puts her hand right on his chest where his heart is and stuff. Yeah. Clearly you're like reinforcing that bond, and like, he is just wrapped around her finger.
Oh God.
And, we'll do it. Yeah. And
powerless.
and then that, because right after that scene, then the Empress goes to see Desmond.
Yes.
And she, first of all, it kind of looks like they're going to get busy. right?
Oh yeah.
And she's
Oh,
like, I want some attention too. But we kind of get a little bit of her like grocery list of like reasons why she hates the sisterhood so much. Like you mentioned at the beginning, and she kind of says that like, I was supposed to come here and be the one that, changes the universe, and they took that from me, and then they took my husband from me, and then they took my son from me, and my daughter, all this stuff. And she ends it up by saying, she looks at Desmond and she's like, let's like rid the Imperium of all these witches. Right.
Yes.
And it just, yeah. But
it's a great line. It's a great moment. Yeah.
Yeah. And I believe I think the episode ends. I think that's the end of it there. They don't go any further there. But yeah, again, it's just so great because you have all of these different characters that all have their own axes to grind and their own agendas and plots. And it's I love it. It's just so great.
Yeah. And speaking of agendas, we find out yes, the let's get rid of these witches for good was like the last moment, but we did get, prior to that, we find out not only who Desmond is, but it's not even so much more about who Desmond is, but where he came from, and he's Tula's son.
Oh yeah.
Oh boy, So Tula had, all of the fallout of that. Tula had, oh God, what was that poor fool's name that she killed?
I don't remember. Yeah,
I can't remember. Yeah, but the guy she was
dead like, Atreides guy.
Dead Atreides fiance, let's say. So she was pregnant, clearly, and gave birth to half Atreides, half House Harkonnen, and just the implications
Ori.
of
his name was Ori.
Ori, of course it was. Why wouldn't it be?
Ori, maybe something else.
Ori never met his son. Yeah. There's so much baked into all of that we're not even really going to get all of the impact of that until it really starts to play out next week, because we got that reveal, and then we had like the moment with Desmond and the Empress and whatever, and then let's rid these witches forever, and then it's over, and you're like, holy shit, like what did we just see?
Right,
it was just like boom, 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 boom right before the episode ended. So I'm really curious, like, do you think, like, will Tula try and hide this? Like, I wasn't able to get a definitive result, or you know what I mean? Like, does she try and hide it? Does she come clean and come right out against it? Like,
you know what? I'm not sure, because Tula, as we've seen, has a lot of hidden strength to do horrible things. Right? And is this something that she's going to defy her sister over? I don't. Does Valia even know she had a child? You know what I mean? Who knows? We just don't have enough info, right? I mean, the only clue we have is that earlier in the episode, Jen is kind of attacking her a little bit for what she did to Lila. Making her go through the agony, and basically she says, you just used her for your own, purposes, your own ends. And she responds saying, she did it for the good of she sacrificed for the good of the sisterhood. And Jen's like, well, what have you ever sacrificed? And she has this line of like, more than you will ever know. And, you're like, it at the time you're like, ooh, what does that mean? And my thought was, well, she like killed like 40 guys. I mean, that's, at one time she killed 40 guys, that's a massacre. And she did that all by herself. But now we find out, no. She's talking about she had a baby and had to, give it up. And, here's a thought that just occurred to me. Maybe Valia made her give it up.
Yeah.
Part of the plan.
I have a feeling that that's going to be part of it. It's going to have to be. I mean, look at all of the, Francesca had to abandon her son. Tula had to abandon her son. All these girls having boys when they should not have,
Well, and like Lila doesn't know who her parents are.
Right.
So yeah. I mean, maybe it's hard to tell, right? It could be so many things. I mean, we're just like,
I know.
oh, it could be this, it could be that. We just don't know. But yeah, when she's in the chamber with the thinking machine and it's running all the DNA and stuff, and then it goes bloodline Harkonnen, bloodline Atreides, and then it connects, and you see the little baby's face appear, and she's just like, oh no. Yeah, it was so good. It was good. Yeah.
Fantastic. Is there anything that we sort of jumped over in our notes that you want to make sure we sort of circle back and hit?
I actually know what there is. There's one thing that we didn't talk about, and that is after the dinner sequence, where the Constantine is appointed the commander of the fleet and all that. Inez, the princess, goes to Kyrian, who's floating, and she does the sister thing. She touches her thumb and her finger together, and her pupils dilate, and she's like truth seeing him. So clearly, she has some training already, right?
Yeah. Or some sort of natural instinct or something. I was very surprised in that scene.
Yeah, I was too, because I'm like, ooh, I thought she was going there to Wallach 9 to learn how to do all that stuff, it was real interesting. And of course, Kyrian, basically said, she's like, was all of it a lie? And he's like, no, I like you, and I care for you, but I know what my overall job is, and that's to protect the Imperium. And I almost got the sense, and I'll ask you this, the princess, I could see her becoming a rebel real easy. I think she is not at all happy with, it's her father, I get it, but not happy with the way things are done.
Yeah. She's sort of like, you could see a lot of that on her face in that dinner scene. She's just kind of done with everything.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because if she already has some truth-saying abilities, could she go out there and be sort of a rogue sister?
Maybe.
Possibly.
Yeah, maybe.
And take her skills on the road.
I mean, the only thing I guess I would say would mean she probably won't get really involved in the rebellion is that she's going to be the empress someday anyway. So, maybe she's like, when I get in charge, I'm going to change it all, and we'll see. But yeah,
it'll all be different for me.
But anyway,
no, go ahead.
I was going to say that I thought that was a really interesting scene that, we see that she does have at least a rudimentary ability to truths, to tell if you're lying or not. So that was
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to make sure we didn't gloss over that, we get the Harrow scene and then his follow-up scene with Valia, and there's a lot of really great intrigue where you learn Valia's sort of got plans inside plans inside plans. And then, but there's also, she's the one who summoned Francesca, but she couldn't do it through regular sources. So she had to make it seem like Constantine had done it.
Yeah.
So, there's this whole moment where she's like, why'd you have me come? And he's like, I didn't. And that's when she finds out Kasha died and blah, blah, blah. So she has this great scene with Valia where Valia has to sort of talk her into, the whole, the imprinting stuff. You've gotta do your thing. Yeah. You've gotta get Constantine
get him all hot and bothered and
distract the emperor.
Yeah. I doesn't she say something like the Spacing Guild monitors messages, and so if I sent a message that said Kasha died and we need you, it could have been discovered, and so she's like, we couldn't break radio silence, and that was really cool. There's another moment there where Harrow comes back and talks to her and says what happened with Desmond, and then he's like, I have to go back to Lanakil, the whaling planet.
Oh yeah,
so
yeah.
So he's like, this place is yours, for as long as you want. My house is yours, that kind of thing. But he's going back to bury the uncle who, she killed the previous episode, right? And he's like, you sure you don't want to come along and pay your respects? And she's like, I said everything that I needed to him when he was here. And it's great because Harrow has this line, I'm sure every word brought him peace. Oh, wow.
But his delivery of it, because he knows that they don't get along, that they hate each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
But the thing is, do you think that he suspects that she kind of helped him go, or do you think he just said that because he knows they just didn't like each other?
I think it might be a little bit of both. He may suspect, suspect that she helped hasten his demise a little bit. But if he does, I think he's going to hang on to that nugget. Like that's a little something he can have in his back pocket for later. Because honestly, in that moment, he's, I gotta go and do this and blah, blah, blah. She takes the family, like there's a ring for whoever is the person who is like the head of the family, the Duke of the family. And she puts it on his finger. So there's a lot in that moment where it's like, he may think he knows some things. He may be part of these plots, this back and forth, but she's basically like, you have this ring on your finger. You may suspect that I have something to do with the head of the household dying, but keep it like there was a lot in that moment too, where it's like, if she did that to her uncle, she could do that to her nephew just as easy. Yeah. So it's like, he's basically like toeing the line. Yeah. But he may suspect something. It all depends how smart he turns out to be, Yeah. Because right now it's kind of hard to say, we're not sure.
He's just smart enough to be dumb, where it's like you can't it's almost like I can't tell, is he acting dumb because he's aware of what's going on and just is playing everything close to the vest, or is he just dumb? We haven't seen enough to know, but yeah, I think he understands that he's only the head of the household for as long as he's alive, and she can alter that at any moment if she wants to. So
yeah, amazing. I think I hit all my stuff. Did you?
I did. The only comment I had was when the bar explodes and. I'm like, I don't know if a personal shield would protect you from a blast like that. That was,
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't understand the physics of it, but I never understood the science of Dune in general. They have all these spaceships and things, and yet they don't have any computers, and I'm just like, I don't know how that works.
Yeah,
there's so much. Yeah.
Yeah, how do you have a spaceship fly without some kind of thinking machine inside it?
It's just like there's so much math that goes into that, and I get it that the navigators, they take the spice and they can plot courses and stuff, but that's not like making a machine work, an engine run or what. And I don't know. I never understood that, so I don't understand the shield technology either. It stops like bullets and laser beams, but like. The concussion from that explosion, you think would have just turned him into jelly.
Yeah, exactly.
So I again, and he say later on when he's talking to the Empress that he's like, I should have died.
Yeah. So even he's surprised.
Yeah. So again, it's maybe he's just the chosen one in that case. But that was just a note I wrote down where I'm like, it was really cool. I'm not sure if that would have helped him or not.
Yeah, and in my notes about that whole sequence, I put it's a great commercial for those personal shields.
Oh my god,
man, they obviously work.
They work. Get one.
Really, really hard. Yeah. All right, that's gonna do it for our first half of the podcast. We covered everything we wanted to cover. We're gonna go ahead right now, folks. We're gonna take a quick break. When we come back, we're gonna discuss some of our listener feedback we received and what's coming up on the podcast.
So please, everyone, turn on your personal shields and stick around because we will be right back.
The following is an emergency action message. Civil authorities have identified a biological threat that they deem credible. This threat could potentially affect the entire continental United States.
The dead are returning to life and attacking the living.
911, what's your emergency?
There's a man off bed and he's attacking another man. Looks like he's biting him, like on the arm.
The initial signs are puzzling, unclear.
Getting pulled out of their cars and thrown to the ground. It looks like the bus passengers are biting their victims.
Soon, however, the reality is clear and undeniable.
The crisis involving the recently dead continues. Parliament today passed a law that requires all bodies of the recently deceased to be registered and turned...
Toxic Bag Productions has captured the sounds of the zombie apocalypse and brought them to your gaming table. Background ambiances, zombie attacks, and radio transmissions that set the scene for your modern zombie adventure. Download MP3s from DriveThruRPG.com or ToxicBag.com.
Hi, I'm Ross Marquand, and you're listening to the Aim for the Head podcast with Diana and Steve. And remember, always aim for the head, because body shots just don't work.
Welcome back, everybody. We are back here to discuss some of our listener feedback, and we're going to chat a little bit about what's coming up next on the podcast. But before we do that, like I said, we've got some feedback for both this week's episode, and we did get a little bit of feedback for last week's episode as well.
Yes,
strangely
did.
All from the same person. So last week's feedback for Twice Born, we got some slightly late feedback from our pal Erica Price via the Facebooks. Hello, Erica.
Hello, Erica.
And it was one of those things where it came in while we were recording, so we just didn't have time to sort of slot it into the podcast. So she was very, very, very close to being on time, but just by a hair. So what we wanted to make sure to include it this week. So thanks for sending it in, Erica. All right, so Erica says, if this is too spoilery, please omit this from your podcast. That's fine. We did omit it from our podcast last week. Erica,
did.
That's a great idea. But clearly the prophecy of Twice Born, Once in Blood, Once in Spice is referring to Lila, not Desmond. And I feel like Valia is going to get caught in the crosshairs because she hasn't made this connection since she was told Lila didn't survive the agony. And Jen didn't have the nightmare? ? Why is she immune? Why does Valia destroy her voice message to Tula? Interesting. Mm-hmm. Inez is getting a crash course in the way of politics. She's learning a little too late that corruption is rampant, and I don't think it's going to end well for her. What an epic monologue scene in the Landsrad. He definitely suffers when he uses his powers, Desmond, of course. That was very smart of Valia to swipe his blood. Of course, Desmond knows what she'll do with it. Theodosia comes in to save Valia, though. I wonder what they're up to. So a couple of things. I'm not sure if we'll get an answer on why Jen is immune, because that came up in this week's episode as well, because of it being confirmed that she really didn't get the nightmare. So that I'm not sure about. What do you think about the idea that the Twice Born prophecy is Lila, not Desmond?
I think so. We talked about that a little bit last week. That, I mean, clearly both of them, Desmond and Lila, they fit the bill. They both have, were born of woman, of blood, and then he got eaten by the worm and then pooped out and survived in the spice. And she clearly, I mean, Tula brought her back by ingesting spice into her. So they both could be it, and it would be very, I totally could see it where we're supposed to think Desmond is the reckoning because he's the guy that is right in front of you that's doing all this stuff, but it's actually her. You know what I mean? It's just
right, like a little misdirection.
Yeah. So I do. I mean, don't you think so too?
Yeah, I think so. It's interesting because I think it can be either. So I think they're doing that on purpose, that they're kind of showing that there can be more than one person that is this prophecy, you know, that it's, but it's hard to say. I think, I don't know. I think Lila is the more obvious answer. And I think because of the spice thing, I think they're trying to push you toward the Desmond thing, and it is Lila. So I think that's the more likely thing, is that it actually is Lila. Yeah.
Okay. Well, again, we'll have to see where they go with it next week.
Still no answers this week on that. So it'll be interesting to see if they even talk about it next week.
Yeah. And then as far as Jen not having the nightmare, don't you think that there's a chance that they're going to, use some of her blood or, DNA or something to try and come up with a antidote? Or
for sure,
because if it is truly a virus, she might just be one of those, lucky people that is just naturally immune, right?
Yes.
Which what's that, like 1% or 1% of 1% or whatever it is. There's always going to be someone or some creature that is immune to a virus. That there's nothing that, thank goodness, is 100% effective. So maybe, and it's in the fact that now we know it's a virus, and they're approaching it from that angle of how to fight it. That the fact that she's not having the nightmare, they might be like, "Ooh, let's get a blood sample from you and let's take a look at it," and we'll learn more about that way. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just, why is she immune? How is she immune? Again, they have not really told us, and they don't really seem to be that concerned about it. Like Tula's not like, how is it you're not having that? You know what I mean? She's just like,
we must delve into this reason why.
Yeah, she's more just like, you're not having it, and she's like, no, and she's like, good, come help me. I mean, that's what she will. You know what I mean? It was just like, great, let's go. So I don't know. What we'll have to see. And then what else did she ask? The voice message. Yeah. That was weird. It's like, can't you just delete it and start over again like normal people? Right?
I don't know, but what's interesting is, could have this week's information have explained that? The fact that the Spacing Guild listens, so maybe she just deleted it to make sure that nobody hears it again,
If I remember correctly, she like says, I'm sorry about Lila, and then she kind of goes into, you really cared for her, she was important, and then she kind of catches herself, and so I don't know, maybe she felt that by acknowledging that, she felt bad, that it was like admitting, they shouldn't have done it, or you know what I mean? It's sort of like questioning the judgment to force the kid to go through it after, the kid dies. It's weird. I would almost want to go back and watch that scene again and hear exactly what she's saying in the message when she suddenly goes, nope, but that's not going to work. And again, it's not that she deletes it. She actually like breaks the memory stick or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, she's like, no, never. No one's going to use this as. So yeah, it's a really good question, Erica.
Yeah.
That again, it's not clearly important enough to the showrunners because they haven't gone back to it, but hopefully we'll find out a little bit more. I think once we find out more of just in general what's going on, maybe some of these questions will be answered. So, but good questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again for sending in your feedback for last week's episode, Erica. And again, apologies we couldn't get it into the episode, but like you said, for spoilery reasons, maybe it's good that we didn't include it. So
I know
thanks again.
It would have been very spoilery. So, but thanks so much for writing in. And guess what? For episode 5,
who wrote it again?
We have feedback from Erica Price.
Stop it.
It's so great. Yeah. So she said, and again, she sent this one on time. And she
improving.
She did. And she starts it out, and I think in a very, very great way. And she goes, sorry, my feedback was late last week. Please don't send Desmond after me. And I got to tell you, Erica, we were like this close, okay? And my finger and thumb are very close together right now. So But yeah, no worries. It's all good. She goes on with her feedback. She goes, finally, Desmond gets new clothes. I know, right? Oh, I was just like, dude, take a shower, man. Come on. But then she goes on to say, but that mystery scrap of fabric, right? It's killing us. We all want to know what the hell it is.
Yeah,
maybe a sister's.
What is it?
Maybe a sister's cloak, which we talked about. Could be, I think. Black seems to be the sister's, thing. Yeah. So I think once you've like graduated, I think it's your color. When you're just an acolyte, they have different like more earthal tones, like that bluish green, and like you see some girls in white and so on. But once you're like done and you get your diploma, I think you wear the black pretty much all the time. So but she goes on after that to say, still curious about that. Maybe a sister's cloak is that mysterious scrap of fabric. She goes, I am glad to finally see what became of Francesca. Her use of imprinting on Haviko will influence him to promote Constantine, but Constantine will want more, I bet. Interesting. And she goes, I want whatever trinket that is that Harrow got from Desmond. I know, right?
It's so shiny and pretty.
It was, but what was it? It was almost like kind of like a thinking machine in a way, right? Because it like lit up, and I don't know. It was very weird though, and I want to know more about what it was too. Clearly, it was important because he like couldn't wait to get it.
Yes.
She goes on to say they make a point to show Valia and Francesca touching hands, and Valia speaks pointedly. Is Valia doing a bit of imprinting on her to convince her to follow her plan?
Ooh,
interesting.
Look at that.
Interesting.
Great catch, Erica.
Sister Avelia's face when she sees Lila and hears Raquela's words coming from her mouth is priceless. I know. Oh, it was so
great moment.
It was just a what the F? What the F
right,
and F?
Exactly.
I mean, it was wonderful. And she goes, and then the next point, Inez is already a truth sayer? Right. Yeah. It was like, where did this come from?
Yeah.
She goes, I knew Tula had to get pregnant with Ori. Why even go so thoroughly into that backstory with him if it wasn't going to come up later? So would that be a Pavlovian pregnancy or
maybe?
Maybe I don't know, possibly, but you're right. Looking back at it, the fact that that was like a fairly long getting busy scene between the two of them, right? When that said it when they could have just sufficed with like a quick fade and a dissolve, and then he's like, wow, that was great, and she's like, yeah, you were wonderful, and that was it, right? I mean, they could have done that, but they didn't. Certainly, we should have been smart enough to think, that's going to come back up later. And then she goes on to finish it up by saying, Hart has to be her son. OMG, what a great twist. This Harkonnen/Atreides feud has been going on for 10,000 years since Paul was also revealed to have Harkonnen blood. Yes, well, I think Lady Jessica, she's Harkonnen. Isn't that one of the secrets that's revealed?
One of the things that's revealed, yeah.
So you're absolutely right. You're absolutely again, for all the grandness of the Imperium and the Landrasad and all that, it all comes down to Harkonnen versus Atreides, and they just don't like each other.
Yeah.
Right, you know. It's good. But anyway, that is amazing feedback, Erica. So many cool points and some great questions. And I think for all of us that are watching the show, I think we're all like, I want to know that too. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Thanks so much for writing in.
Yeah. And we'll have some specific questions for you as well, Erica. We'll get to it in just a minute when we talk about what's coming up on the podcast. So what's coming up on the podcast, by the way, next week is episode 6. Title of the episode is The High-Handed Enemy, which I think is interesting. There's, of course, no description yet, because why would they do that and give it all away? There weren't really any crazy images at the end of the episode to see for next week's episode.
Not much.
Yeah, so not a lot to give on that end. So it's great because we really have no idea what to expect for next week's episode. But we do want to let our listeners know, and we'll make sure to remind you on the socials as well. But because of the way the holiday next week falls, we're going to go ahead and take a tiny break for the holiday, and we were going to record our discussion about episode 6 in like not 2 weeks from today, but 2 weeks from like 2 days ago. We're going to do it on the 30th.
December 30th. Yeah.
December 30th. Yes. And it'll give everybody extra time through the holidays to watch the episode, get your feedback in, really think about it. But we're also, since it's going to wrap up the season 1, let us know what you thought of episode 6, but also, which of the 6 was your favorite episode? Who are your favorite characters so far? What are you thinking of the season so far? So, send us really what you're feeling about this series so far, and are you excited if they might do a season 2? I haven't heard anything yet, but I can't imagine that they wouldn't. God, it's just so fantastic. So make sure to write in and let us know what you thought of that finale and what you think of the season as a whole. And obviously we'll send reminders out via all of the socials so that you don't have to write it down now. And it gives you an extra week to get your feedback in on time, Erica. And you can
no excuses this time.
Plenty of time to think about all the other episodes too, and maybe craft what you're thinking of the season as a whole, characters that really hit you, like scenes that really hit you, like what's a favorite scene, a favorite moment, favorite line. So yeah, let us know. And again, we'll reach out on the socials and give you, some spots to send feedback in. You can always email us though as well. So not only that, but I think what we're also going to do is we're going to do like a little segment at the end and talk about the year as a whole. What were our favorite movies we saw in the theater this year? What's a series that we saw this year that we really liked? What was our favorite podcast episode to record this year? And what about you guys? What were your favorite sort of pop culture moments? And what's your favorite episode that we recorded this year? And again, I'll send out like some questions, some prompts, some things like that. Just, start thinking about that. Like, what are some things that really stayed with you this year? Because we'd love to do that. We're going to consider this next episode of ours sort of like a year-end kind of wrap-up. And we'd love to chat about all that stuff. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's going to be fun. I know. I can't believe the year's almost out. So we're looking forward to that. Again, we look forward to watching the finale next week and then talking with you about it the week after. And since we aren't going to chat with you before it happens, if you celebrate the Christmas holidays, Merry Christmas to you all. There's lots of different holidays that are happening this time of year. Whichever one you celebrate, please enjoy yourself, get some rest, get some time to recharge and attack 2025 with different vigor.
Yes, eat lots of cookies and
yes.
Spend time with your family and do all that good stuff that is always good to do. And yes, everyone have a wonderful, safe, and happy holiday season. Because obviously when we come back, we will be like literally getting ready to launch 2025.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. So that's going to be it for us for this week. We look forward to chatting with you in just a little under 2 weeks' time. And like we said, enjoy your holidays. But until we talk to you again, as always, I'm Diana.
And I'm Steve.
And don't forget to always aim for the head.
'Cause body shots, they just don't work. To send us an email, write us at aimfortheheadpodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @AFTHpodcast. Pictures and video are always welcome at our Instagram account, Aim for the Head Podcast, all one word. But the best way to keep in touch with us is to just like our Facebook page to get all of our updates in your feed. 5 days. Because she's only in like those 2 scenes, and it's like
she's like 4 minutes of the episode.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. She was there for like 1 day, and then was like, "I'm gone later, bitches."
Dude, Raquella was in the episode more, and she's fucking dead.
Right.
So, yeah.